The snow fell in thick, silent sheets outside the small wooden house on the edge of the Vermont forest. It was the kind of winter night that swallowed sound, the temperature hovering at -2 degrees Celsius, the air so sharp it stung the lungs. Inside, the only light came from a single lamp on the workbench and the faint orange glow of the wood stove in the corner. Noah Callahan. 38 sat hunched over the bench, his calloused hands steady as he sanded the final curve of a small chair. The chair was simple pine, sturdy, just the right height for an 8-year-old. He had carved the name Lily into the backrest in careful looping letters. Tomorrow was her birthday, and he wanted it finished before she woke. 3 years ago, his wife Sarah had died of heart failure in the middle of a quiet April night. Since then, Noah had learned to fill the empty hours with work. By day, he was a carpenter at the local mill. By night, he took custom orders, anything to keep the lights on and the fridge full. Happiness, he had decided, was not grand. It was a warm meal, a healthy child, and a winter without a shut-off notice from the electric company. His phone sat on the edge of the bench screen, dark except for the time, 1:17 a.m. It buzzed once, then rang. An unknown number, no local area code. Noah's first instinct was to let it go to voicemail. Calls at this hour were never good news, but he thought of his mother alone in the nursing home 30 miles away and of how she sometimes forgot the time difference between her confusion and the real world. He wiped his hands on his jeans and answered. Hello, silence, on the other end. Then a breath, shaky, barely audible. Hello, he repeated softer. A woman's voice came through thin and frayed like someone speaking from the bottom of a well. Can you stay on the line with me, just for a little while? Noah froze the sandpaper still in his hand. Are you okay? He asked. A long pause. I don't think so. Where are you? I can call someone for you. No. Don't call anyone. I don't want anyone to know. I don't want to die alone. The last word cracked. Noah felt it like a physical blow. He set the sandpaper down. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled the chair closer and sat. My name is Noah, he said quietly. I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay right here until you're ready to sleep. Another shaky breath. Then, almost inaudible, Vivian. James. He didn't ask if that was her real name. He didn't ask why she was calling a stranger at this hour. He simply began to talk. He told her about the chair he was making, how Lily had drawn a picture of it months ago and taped it to the fridge. He told her about the time Lily tried to hide all the green crayons because she was convinced the other kids would steal them. He told her about the stray cat that kept showing up on the porch and how Lily begged to keep it even though Noah was allergic and sneezed every time it came near. Every few minutes he paused, waiting. And every time she whispered the same thing, Are you still there? I'm still here, he answered. He didn't know how long it went on. 2 hours, maybe more. The snow kept falling outside, piling against the windows. The stove crackled. Eventually her responses grew slower, her voice softer until she was barely speaking at all. Thank you, she said at last, so quietly he almost missed it. For not hanging up, whoever you are. Then the line went dead. Noah sat motionless for a long time afterward, staring at the darkened screen. His heart was pounding in a way it hadn't in years. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know if she had made it through the night. He didn't even know if she had been serious or if it had been some cruel prank. But he knew one thing: in the darkest hour of someone's life, she had reached out and he had stayed. He looked at the half-finished chair on the bench, at the name Lily carved into the wood, and felt something shift inside him. Not hope, exactly. Not yet. But the possibility of something more than survival. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the world in quiet white. 3 days passed like slow breaths in the cold. Noah tried not to think about the call. He told himself it was just a wrong number, a moment of someone else's despair that had brushed against his life and drifted away. But the memory clung. Every time the house grew quiet, he heard her voice again, thin, frayed, asking if he was still there. He didn't look up the number. He didn't search. Some things he decided were better left unknown. On the third morning, he took Lily to the Maple Leaf Cafe, the only place in town with decent coffee and a corner booth that felt like theirs. It was Saturday, and Lily had been begging for hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. She bounced ahead of him in her red coat snow boots, squeaking on the salted sidewalk. Inside the cafe smelled of cinnamon and wood smoke. A few regulars nodded as Noah walked in, old Mr. Harlan at the counter, the librarian Mrs. Ellis with her newspaper. Lily slid into their usual booth and immediately pulled out her sketch pad. Noah ordered their usual black coffee for him, hot chocolate for her. He was halfway through stirring sugar into his cup when Lily gasped. "Daddy, look. The lady over there is drawing a broken heart." Noah followed her gaze. At the window table farthest from the door, a woman sat alone. Dark brown hair fell in loose waves over the collar of a gray wool coat. A half-empty latte sat untouched beside her. In front of her was a single sheet of paper, and on it a heart perfectly drawn on the right side, but only a jagged outline on the left, as though someone had stopped halfway through. Lily was already out of the booth before Noah could stop her. She marched straight over small boots, leaving wet prints on the floorboards. "Hi, your heart isn't finished," she announced, pointing at the paper. "It's only half. Hearts need both sides." The woman looked up. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then her eyes widened, recognition flashing across her face like a struck match. Noah felt the air shift. He stood slowly, coffee forgotten, and walked toward them. The woman's gaze moved from Lily to him, and her lips parted. "You're the man from the phone," she whispered. Noah nodded once. Lily looked between them, confused but delighted. "You know each other." The woman managed a small, trembling smile. "Kind of. I called him by accident the other night. I didn't know who he was." Lily's eyes went huge. "You're the lady who needed someone to talk to." The woman's cheeks flushed. "I guess I was." Noah pulled out the chair opposite her. "May I?" She nodded almost shyly. He sat. Lily climbed onto the seat beside him, still clutching her sketch pad. "I'm Lily," she said, as if it were the most important introduction in the world. "This is my dad, Noah. He makes chairs. Really good ones. Do you need a chair?" The woman laughed, a soft, surprised sound like she hadn't expected it. "I might, actually. I don't have very many things right now." Noah watched her closely. She was thinner than he had imagined, her skin pale against the gray coat. Her fingers trembled slightly around the pencil, but her eyes, those same eyes he had imagined in the dark, were clear alive. "I'm Vivian," she said quietly. "Vivian Hayes. Not James." I said James because I didn't want anyone to know who I was. Noah didn't press. He simply said, "I'm glad you're okay." Her gaze dropped to the table. "I didn't think I would be. That night, I wasn't planning on making it to morning," Lily frowned. "But you did. And now you're here drawing hearts. That's good." Vivian looked at the little girl, something softening in her expression. "You're very wise for 8. I'm almost 9, Lily corrected proudly. "My birthday is tomorrow. Daddy's making me a chair with my name on it." Vivian's eyes flicked to Noah, a question there. He shrugged. "She asked for it last summer. Said she wanted something that would last forever." Vivian's throat moved. "That's a beautiful thing to want." For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Lily reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small pack of crayons. She selected the red one and held it out. "Here. Finish the heart. It's okay if it's not perfect. Hearts aren't supposed to be perfect anyway." Vivian hesitated, then took the crayon. She drew slowly, carefully filling in the missing half. When she finished, the heart was lopsided one side, bolder than the other, but whole. Lily clapped. "See now, it's complete!" Vivian stared at the paper for a long time. When she looked up, her eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. "Thank you," she said first to Lily, then to Noah. "Both of you." Noah reached across the table and gently pushed Lily's untouched hot chocolate toward her. "It's still warm. Lily makes the best ones. She says the marshmallows are magic." Vivian wrapped her hands around the mug. She took a small sip, then another. For the first time in 3 days, Noah felt the knot in his chest loosen. Outside, snow continued to fall soft and steady, covering the town in quiet white. Inside the cafe, 3 strangers sat together at a small table, sharing hot chocolate and the fragile beginning of something no one had expected. Vivian began appearing at the Maple Leaf Cafe almost every morning after that first encounter. She always chose the same window table, ordered a latte she barely touched, and sat with her sketch pad or a book she never quite finished reading. The staff grew accustomed to her quiet presence. The regulars stopped asking questions. In a small town like this, people learn to let others keep their silences. Lily was the one who bridged the distance. Every Saturday, when Noah brought her in for hot chocolate, Lily would march straight to Vivian's table with a new drawing or a question about colors or why some hearts looked different from others. Vivian never minded. She listened to the little girl's endless stories about the cat that still visited the porch, about the snowman she wanted to build taller than her father, about how she was going to be an artist and a carpenter when she grew up. Vivian answered gently sometimes with a small smile, sometimes with a faraway look that made Noah wonder what memories she was seeing. Noah watched from their booth, nursing his coffee, careful not to intrude. He sensed the fragility in her, the way she held herself like someone afraid the next breath might break something inside. He didn't push. He had learned long ago that some wounds only heal when left alone long enough to breathe. One gray Tuesday in late January, Lily was at school and the cafe was nearly empty. Vivian was already there when Noah walked in. She looked up as the bell chimed, and for the first time she didn't look away when their eyes met. He approached slowly. "Mind if I sit?" She gestured to the chair opposite her. He sat. For a long moment neither spoke. Snow tapped softly against the window pane. "I owe you more than a thank you," she said at last. Her voice was quiet, almost lost in the hum of the espresso machine. "I never told you the whole truth that night." Noah waited. "My name is Vivian Hayes," she continued, "not James. I lied because I didn't want you to know who I really was. Hayes Biopharma. My family owns most of the private hospitals and pharmaceutical labs in the Northeast. I'm the only heir." She said it without pride, without apology. Just fact. Noah didn't react. He had guessed something like this. Her coat was too expensive for this town, her manners too polished, but hearing it aloud still felt like stepping into someone else's life. "I have a genetic heart condition," she went on. "Same as my mother, same as my grandmother. It's progressive. Incurable without a transplant. I've known since I was 20. She looked down at her untouched latte. "My family has money. They have the best doctors, the best waiting lists, the best everything. But they also have expectations, meetings, press releases, board decisions. I've spent my entire adult life being a project someone to fix someone, to preserve someone whose heart is more valuable as a business asset than as mine." Her fingers tightened around the mug. "I got tired of it. Tired of being watched, monitored, scheduled. Tired of people asking about my prognosis instead of asking how I felt. So I stopped the treatments, stopped the tests, stopped everything. I came here because no one knows me in Vermont. I wanted to disappear quietly." She met his eyes. "That night I called you. I had decided it was the end. I dialed a number I thought was a crisis line. I misdialed, and I got you." Noah exhaled slowly. "And you're still here, because of Lily," she said softly. "And because of you. When you stayed on the line, when you talked about her crayons and her silly fears, it was the first time in years someone spoke to me like I was just a person, not a patient, not an heiress, just someone who needed to hear another voice." He leaned forward slightly. "Sarah, my wife, died of heart failure. Sudden. No warning. One night she was laughing at a bad joke I told. The next morning she was gone. I know what it's like to lose someone to a heart that just stops." Vivian's eyes filled. "I'm sorry. I'm not telling you that to compare pain," he said. "I'm telling you because I know what it feels like to be left with nothing but questions. And I know what it feels like to keep going anyway. For Lily. Because she needed me to." Vivian looked out the window at the falling snow. "I don't know if I can do that. Keep going. Every day it gets harder to breathe. My hands shake more. I get dizzy just standing up sometimes. I don't want to be saved, Noah. I don't want another surgery, another machine, another year of being watched like I'm fragile glass." He didn't argue. He simply said, "You don't have to decide everything today." She turned back to him. "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because you called," he answered simply. "And because Lily likes you, and because, I don't know, maybe because the world feels a little less heavy when you're sitting here." Vivian's lips trembled. Then she smiled a small, real smile that reached her eyes for the first time. They sat in silence after that, watching the snow fall, two strangers who had accidentally become something more. Outside, the storm grew thicker. Inside, something fragile and new began to grow in the quiet spaces between them. The snow fell heavier that January morning, blanketing the town in a thick, muffling hush. Noah arrived at the Maple Leaf Cafe a little later than usual. He had stopped by the mill to pick up a few extra boards for a rush order. When he pushed open the door, the bell chimed softly against the quiet. Vivian was already at her window table. But something was wrong. She sat slumped forward, one arm draped across the table, her head resting on it as though she had simply decided to sleep there. Her latte had spilled dark liquid pooling around her sketch pad, the pages curling from the wet. The pencil had rolled to the floor. Noah's heart lurched. Vivian. He crossed the room in 3 strides. She didn't move. Her breathing was shallow, ragged. Her skin was the color of old paper. Vivian. He dropped to one knee beside her, fingers pressing against her neck. Pulse weak, erratic. He looked around wildly. The barista, a young woman named Claire, had just come out from the back and froze. Call 911. Noah said, voice low but urgent. Now! Claire nodded and ran for the phone. Noah gently eased Vivian back in the chair, tilting her head to keep her airway open. Her coat had fallen open, revealing the thin sweater beneath the way her chest rose and fell too quickly, too shallowly. He took her hand, cold trembling, and spoke her name again. Softer. Hey, I'm here. Stay with me. Her eyelids fluttered. For a moment her gaze found his, hazy, frightened. Noah. I've got you, he said. Help is coming. But the ambulance was 20 minutes away in this weather. The roads were slick, the storm thickening. Noah knew the small clinic down the street had a defibrillator and oxygen, but it wasn't equipped for this. He made the decision in seconds. He scooped her up light as a child, terrifyingly light, and carried her toward the door. Claire held it open, eyes wide. I'm taking her to the clinic, he told her. Tell them we're coming. The cold hit like a slap when he stepped outside. Snow stung his face, wind whipping through his coat. Vivian's head lolled against his shoulder. He ran boots, slipping on ice across the empty street, past shuttered storefronts to the small medical building that doubled as the town's urgent care. He burst through the door. The nurse on duty, Mrs. Whitaker, looked up from her desk and gasped. Heart episode, Noah said, laying Vivian carefully on the exam table. She's barely breathing. Mrs. Whitaker moved fast. Oxygen mask, monitors, IV line. She called for the doctor while Noah stood back, hands shaking, watching them work. The doctor arrived minutes later, breathless from running through the snow. He listened to her chest, checked the monitors, and swore under his breath. Cardiogenic shock. We need to get her to Burlington General now. They're the only ones with a cardiac cath lab and transplant team. Noah looked down at Vivian. Her eyes were closed, face slack under the mask. The monitor beeped unevenly. I'll drive, he said. My truck's right outside. The doctor hesitated only a second. We'll go with lights and sirens, but it's 40 minutes in this weather. Noah didn't answer. He simply helped transfer her to the gurney, wrapped her in blankets, and followed the ambulance driver out into the storm. The ride was a blur of red and blue lights cutting through white. Noah sat in the back, holding Vivian's hand, speaking to her the entire time, even though she didn't respond. You're going to be okay, he said again and again. Lily's waiting for you. She drew you another picture this morning, a whole family of snowmen. She said one of them looks like you because it has a scarf the same color as your coat. He didn't know if she heard. He just kept talking. At the hospital, they rushed her straight to the cath lab. Noah was told to wait in the family room. Hours passed. He sat on a plastic chair coat, still wet with snow, staring at the floor. At some point, he called the neighbor to pick Lily up from school. He told her Daddy would be home late, that everything was okay. It wasn't okay. When the cardiologist finally came out, his face was grim. She's stable for now, he said. We got her through the acute phase, but her heart is failing fast. She needs a transplant, soon. If she codes again before we find a match. He didn't finish the sentence. Noah felt the words like a physical weight on his chest. Can I see her? The doctor nodded. The ICU room was dim lit only by monitors and the soft glow of hallway light. Vivian lay small and pale in the bed tubes and wires everywhere. Her eyes were closed, but when Noah took her hand, her fingers twitched. He sat beside her. "I'm here," he said quietly. Just like that night. Her eyelids fluttered open. Her voice was barely a whisper through the oxygen mask. "I'm sorry. I didn't want this. I didn't want to drag you into stop," he said gently. "You didn't drag me anywhere." I walked in. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I don't want to fight anymore, Noah." "I'm tired." He leaned closer. I know you are. But listen to me. You already chose to live once when you didn't hang up. When you let me talk about crayons and cats and stupid things. You chose then. Choose again. Not for the doctors, not for your family, for Lily. For me. For the person you're becoming when you sit in that cafe and smile at my daughter like she's the most important thing in the world. Her breath hitched. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know. I was scared every day after Sarah died. But I kept going. And look what I found." He squeezed her hand. "I found you." Vivian closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her temple. After a long silence, she spoke again so softly he almost missed it. "Okay, I'll try." Noah pressed his forehead to her hand. "That's all I'm asking." Outside the window, the snow kept falling steady and relentless. Inside the room, something fragile held on two people, one faulty heart and the quiet promise of more mornings. 2 months had passed since the surgery. The transplant had been a miracle, rare, fast, and perfect in timing, as though the universe had finally decided to be kind. Vivian had spent the first weeks in the hospital, then in a quiet recovery suite in Burlington, but as soon as the doctors cleared her, she refused to return to the empty penthouse in Manhattan. Instead, she asked Noah one simple question. "Can I come home with you?" He hadn't hesitated. The small wooden house on the edge of the forest looked the same creaking porch, same smoke curling from the chimney, same pine trees standing sentinel against the winter sky. But inside, everything had changed. Lily had taken charge of the preparations. She had drawn pictures for every wall, taped them up with careful strips of tape so they wouldn't tear the wood. There was a snowman family on the living room door, a crayon rainbow over the couch, and a new sign hanging above the guest room, now Vivian's room, written in bright purple marker. "Welcome home, Vivian." When Noah carried her suitcase inside, Vivian stopped in the doorway, eyes wide. Lily ran to her, arms open. "I made cookies. They're a little burned on the bottom, but Daddy said burned cookies still taste like love." Vivian knelt slowly, carefully, and hugged the little girl. "They're perfect," she whispered. The day settled into a gentle rhythm. Mornings began with the crackle of the wood stove and the smell of coffee. Vivian sat at the kitchen table while Noah made breakfast, watching Lily chatter about school, about the cat that had finally been allowed inside on a trial basis, about the new sketchbook Vivian had given her for Christmas. In the afternoons, Vivian rested, but she never stayed in bed long. She would wander to the porch with a blanket, watch the snow fall, and sometimes sketch simple things now. The curve of a tree branch, the way light caught on frost, the outline of Noah's shoulders as he split wood outside. She was healing. Not just her body, the new heart beat strong and steady, but something deeper. The exhaustion that had shadowed her for years was lifting, replaced by quiet wonder at the ordinary. She marveled at the sound of Lily's laughter echoing through the house, at the way Noah's hands, rough from years of work, could be so gentle when he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She had once lived in rooms of marble and glass, surrounded by people who measured her worth in numbers, blood pressure, stock prices, survival rates. Here in this small house, she was simply Vivian. And that was enough. One evening in early March, when the snow had begun to thin and the first hints of spring teased the air, the three of them sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets. The sky was clear stars sharp against the black. Lily had fallen asleep against Vivian's side, her head on Vivian's shoulder, breathing soft and even. Noah looked at them both, his heart full in a way he hadn't thought possible since Sarah. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a ring, simple, carved from oak, the same wood he had used for Lily's first chair. He had spent weeks shaping it, polishing it, until the grain glowed warm under the porch light. No diamond, no gold, just wood strong and enduring. He held it out to Vivian. She looked at it, then at him, eyes shining. "Noah, I don't have a castle," he said quietly. "I don't have a fancy car or a family name that opens doors. I have this house and a little girl who thinks you hung the moon, and a heart that's been quiet for 3 years until you walked into that cafe and smiled at my daughter like she was the most important thing in the world." He took her hand. "Vivian Hayes, will you marry me? Not because you need saving, not because the world expects it, but because you want to stay. Because you want mornings with burnt cookies and evenings with stories by the fire, because you want us." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She looked at the ring, then at Lily sleeping against her, then back at Noah. "I thought I'd never want anything again," she whispered. "I thought I'd run out of reasons to keep going. But you gave me one. Then another. And another. You and Lily. You're my reason." She slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "Yes," she said, voice breaking on the word. "Yes, I want to stay." Noah leaned in and kissed her soft, slow, full of everything they hadn't said yet. When they parted, Lily stirred, blinking sleepily. "Did Daddy ask the question?" she mumbled. Vivian laughed through tears. He did." Lily smiled, eyes already closing again. "Good. Now we're a real family." They sat there a long time after that, wrapped in blankets and quiet joy, watching the stars. The snow had stopped falling. Somewhere in the woods, a branch cracked under the weight of winter's last breath. Spring was coming. Vivian rested her head on Noah's shoulder, feeling the steady beat of her new heart, someone else's gift, now hers forever. She had once believed she would die alone. Instead, she had found a home. And in that small wooden house on the edge of the forest, 3 people who had each known loss built something unbreakable. A family not born of blood, but of a single midnight call, a half-finished heart on paper, and the quiet courage to stay. The end.